In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can edit MIDI clips in Clip View. To begin editing our MIDI clips, we must first open Clip View. To do this, we can either use the overview in the bottom right of the screen, or we can press Command, Option and L, then Shift and Tab to change between clip and device view, or lastly, we can simply click on one of our MIDI clips. We can now expand the clip view so we can see all of the notes on the piano roll. From this screen we can also access our velocity editor underneath, as well as our note and our launch controls, and also our clip envelope section. As you can see, we also have a timeline of bars and beats in the MIDI note editor. This can be navigated exactly the same as the normal timeline in arrangement view. Just to recap, we can click drag left or right to scroll, and up and down to zoom in and out. We can also scroll using the clip overview panel at the bottom. We also have the ability to be able to hide or show the panels on the left using the show hide buttons underneath. The first button with the L on it shows or hides the launch controls. The button with the note on it shows or hides the note section. And finally the E button shows or hides the envelopes. The clip panel can't be hidden. In the top left of the MIDI editing window, we also have a monitor button which turns blue when activated. This button allows us to preview the piano roll's keyboard by pressing the keys to the left on the piano roll, or by pressing the notes, or by dragging to create a new note, and finally also by clicking and dragging notes we'll be able to hear the notes that are played. This is extremely useful for when we're programming in MIDI patterns to ensure that we're playing the right notes at the right pitches. We can edit notes by clicking into an empty square. We can also delete notes by double clicking them, and we can change the length or start and end of our notes by click dragging from the edge. It's worth noting at this point that the note size will default to whatever the grid size is set to, which is displayed in the bottom right hand corner. Currently this is set to 16th notes. We can change this by right clicking and selecting 8th, quarter or 32nd notes. We can also turn the grid off, or change it to a triplet grid. The keyboard shortcuts to increase or decrease grid size is Command and 1 and Command and 2. To change the grid to triplets it's Command and 3. The grid will also update as we zoom in and out. We can also change the note velocity by holding Command when dragging up and down on a note. Or we can do this by adjusting the corresponding velocity node up or down, which is just underneath. A number will also appear to show us the velocity or the velocity range value. If we need to fine-tune the velocity values, we can expand the velocity screen to make adjustments easier. It's worth noting that when you place a note, it will default to the last velocity used. The velocity is a MIDI message which tells us how hard to play these notes. This is usually tied to volume. It can also be used to control other parameters, such as filter cutoff and timbre. This can help us with adding a realistic impression to drums, pianos and other instruments. A point to note is that usually the amount of the effect the velocity has on things such as the volume can usually be controlled as a percentage in a device's settings, so at 100% the volume is fully controlled by velocity. However, say at 30%, a certain note's velocity could be set to 0, yet we'd still be able to hear the note because it's only 30% affected. Also notice that as we change the velocity of the note, the colour of the note brightens and fades as well, to give us another visual representation of the velocity of the note. We can also use the right-click menu to copy and paste notes, as well as duplicate notes. To copy and paste, select the notes and then press Command and C to copy and Command and V to paste. We can also duplicate a highlighted region of notes by pressing Command and D. If you select multiple notes, you can also drag them around, as well as shorten, lengthen or delete them together. We can also change multiple notes' velocities. If the velocities are different, the relationship between the velocities will be kept the same until you either bring the notes to 0 or you max them out at 127. This will flatten the velocities out, which is useful for getting all of the notes the same. Notice how selected notes' velocity nodes are slightly a darker shade of red, to help you to distinguish what notes change when they occur at the same time. We can also use the Command key whilst click dragging in the velocity window to set linear velocities. This is useful for adding slow ascendos or crescendos, as well as straightening out uneven velocities when playing manually. Next we'll take a look at the draw function. We can access the pencil tool by pressing the pencil icon in the top right hand corner. We can also access this by pressing the keyboard shortcut B to toggle it on and off. In draw mode, we can see that the mouse cursor changes to a pencil. This now allows us to draw in notes with one click. We can click drag to add multiple notes, and we can also get rid of notes by clicking them. We can also deactivate or mute certain notes by pressing the 0 keyboard shortcut. Notice that the note is now greyed out. To reactivate a note or a selection of notes, just highlight them and hit the 0 key. This is especially useful if you're undecided on an idea and you want to try out a few different versions on the same clip. As well as being able to scroll left and right in the clip view timeline, we can also scroll and zoom vertically to display all the different octaves of the keyboard. To do this, we simply click and drag left and right in the piano roll to zoom in and out, or up and down to scroll through the octaves. If this doesn't work, ensure that the fold button isn't active in the top left of the clip view. Fold is designed so it hides any piano notes that aren't being played to show you a condensed down version of your MIDI notes on one screen, rather than having to scroll up and down or zoom right in to see which notes are being played. The next editing technique we're going to look at is the quantize function. Quantize can be used to correct timing errors when playing notes in manually. You can select which notes you wish to quantize, or you can quantize all of them by pressing Command and A to highlight them. To quantize, right-click and press Quantize, or use the keyboard shortcut Command and U. If you use the keyboard shortcut Command Shift and U, this will bring up the quantize settings dialog box. From this window, we can set the nearest grid size that we want the notes to snap to, whether you want the quantize only at the start of the notes, or only the end of the notes, or both. And finally, we can choose the percentage of quantization. At 100%, the notes will be fully quantized to the selected grid. Setting this at lower values allows us to keep some of those timing errors for a more natural, humanistic feel. If we zoom in on the notes, we can see how the notes nudge over when we press the quantize buttons. Next, we'll take a look at the MIDI warping function in Ableton Live. This is very similar to audio warping, however this lets us proportionately time stretch or compress MIDI notes. To do this, highlight the MIDI notes you wish to warp. You'll now get 2 warp markers in the top of the timeline in the clip view. You can now grab these markers and use these to time stretch or compress the MIDI in real time. We can also edit the MIDI notes using the Notes panel in the bottom left of the screen. This allows us to reverse or invert the MIDI notes using the relevant buttons. This will flip the notes vertically to invert them, or horizontally to reverse them. We can now also press the duplicate loop button, which will duplicate the loop and all of the notes. This means we've now effectively doubled our loop length, as we can see on the timeline. We can also see this from looking at the loop length box at the bottom of the note panel. We can also set whether this is a loop or not, as well as its position and start and end times. The start and end times can also be adjusted using the braces at the top of clip view. Here we can also adjust the loop brace by dragging it on the fly by pressing the set buttons in the note panel. We can also set selected notes to play back at double or half speed using the ×2 or divided by 2 button. We can also affect the whole clip in the same manner by selecting all the notes in the clip. Finally, we also have the display of the range of the notes used within the clip. This will update automatically. We can use this box to transpose all of the notes in the MIDI clip, either by click dragging, using the arrow keys, or typing in the numerical values. Finally, we have the legato function. Legato is Italian for tied together, or smoothing connected. This means that if we have notes with gaps in between them, when we press legato, this will make each note extend up to the start of the next note to erase the gaps. We can legato all or only selected notes.